So before we do anything important here, throughout the story, I started mixing up the names of the people the nicknames of the people because I didn't want to tell their real name. And so to keep the story consistent for you, I have inserted the correct names. So as you continue forward with the story, you may hear a little bit of a different audio. That's okay because guess what? I'm trying to make it consistent. My wig is just chilling in the corner, air drying, bitch. And I'm like, I guess. Like, who really cares, right? But it's just, y'all stay tuned. Y'all stay tuned. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Whitney, and today I'm coming to you guys talking to you about a little bit of that wasn't proper English. Listen, I'm coming here today to tell you guys a little bit of a story time. I'm here to talk about my most toxic relationship. I don't even know if I even want to entertain the idea or thought of Travis anymore, even though I have a ton of story times about him. I think I want to kind of give out a whole synopsis right now, and then I'll give out little story times about what happened here and what happened here and what happened here, because it was some bullshit, let me tell you. But listen, so I wanted to talk about this because even though I've been through a very toxic, a very narcissistic, a very detrimental, and let's call it what it is, traumatic relationship, emotionally traumatic. I'm not nothing I don't want to say nothing major, but that sort of relationship is traumatic to go through. So I'm here to talk about this, and I'm here to also take accountability of my part in this as well, because guess what, none of this stuff, I can't say that's so horrible and toxic in and of itself to be oh, none of this would have happened if I just left. It probably would have happened with a different guy, but the thing is you never know, right? And so my thing is I too want to start taking accountability for my own actions and the things that I've been through, because there's a lot of things that I tolerated that shouldn't have been tolerated. There was a lot of problems that I caused because I wanted things to go my way. Just in general, I think that it's important to take accountability for your actions, because how else are you going to grow? How else are you going to be the person that you want to be? And every single day I try to make it my mission to be the woman that I want to be. I start my day off as the woman that's successful, basically the desired person that I want to be. I'm living my life accordingly. What does this person dream about? What does this person aspire to be? What are her aspirations? Basically, who are you, Whitney, and who are you, Evolved? And I'm trying to be that evolved version, and I'm taking my steps to do so. And so I use YouTube as kind of a therapy session, because I like talking to you guys. I like telling you my different stories, and it's kind of funny, looking back at it, it's why did you do that? But at the same time, it's girl, you got a story to tell your kids, so they will not go through that. And so the thing about it is I'm coming here because I like to give long ass intros for some reason. I don't know why I'm anyways, so I'm coming here to tell you guys a story about me and Travis. I'm going to give you the basics, the what happened, what I learned, and how I continued forward with that. So if you guys are interested in this beautiful topic today, this beautiful story time, don't forget to get your wine, your snacks, get everything, because I don't know if this story is going to be a long one. It more than likely will be, but because I'm kind of shortening it up a little bit, it might not be. I don't fucking know. It is what it is. So if you guys are interested to hear my story, give me a big like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so you never miss when I post a new video. Okay guys, let's get right on into this topic. So first off, we got a couple characters in this story that we're going to come across when we get there, right? And so I can't remember for the life of me what the hell I named them in the different story times. The only person I fucking remember is Travis. So we're just gonna, Travis is the main character in this story as long as me, and that's all we need, right? So let's start at the very, very, very beginning. So in the very beginning, I met one of my first friends in college, was my best friend, who's still my best friend to this day. His name is Chris. And so I met Chris. We would hang out every single weekend, or a lot. Let me just not make it too specific because I don't fucking remember. We would hang out all the time. We would play video games together. We created a bond with just us two because we had a lot of interests. And so it was completely platonic. He was my best friend, and he is my best friend till today. And so through Chris, I almost said his real name. Through Chris, I met Travis because they were roommates. They knew each other, and yeah. And so my first year of college, I had a little bit of a crush on Travis, right? Like, I would see him here and there. We would say hi. He had nice eyes, and I was just like, yo, he like is the person I'm looking for. Like, he's so pretty, etc., etc. And I would tell my friends about it, but like there was a period in time where I just forgot about the nigga. And so like I would only hang out with Chris and then like my friends or whatever, etc. So freshman year ends, and I find Travis on social media. I can't remember where. I find him on social media and I send him a DM. That's basically how our story started. I slid in his DMs. Anyways, so during the summertime, right, me and Travis were starting to hang out more. We ended up having a really good time. He ended up thinking like, oh wow, Whitney, like you're really cool. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, like duh, right? And so the very first time that me and Travis semi kind of hung out was that like I was turning, well, how old was I turning? I was 20 for the first time. Well, duh, but I was turning 20 and I was like, you know, like let's go to the club. And he went with his friends, I went with my friends, and I met him there. We danced on each other. It was a good vibe, right? And so as we continue forward, everything has been a good vibe. And throughout this time, we're becoming the best of friends. Like, it's completely platonic. He's really cool. He's not doing anything. We're having long talks. Like, whenever I would come over, I would stay over until like 3 o'clock in the morning, just shooting shit and just being fucking ridiculous, right? And so it got to the point to where, I don't know who initiated it, but it got to the point to where like a month later, we started being, I don't want to call it intimate, but we started being fucking ridiculous, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. We started being 20-year-old idiots. And so during this time, I was really intrigued with the idea of being intimate with somebody. Like, I was really intrigued with that idea because I was a virgin at the time and he wasn't. And so I was like, okay, well, like, you know, do what needs to be done because I want to experience this. And so one thing about me is that I'm really big into experiencing new things for the first time. I love trying new things. And even though I love that and it's a lot of fun and it can come with a lot of benefits and you can experience so much, it also comes with negatives. Now, I'm never going to tell this virginity story ever. Like, I don't think it's right for me to do so. But basically, with all these trying new things, my stupid ass ended up losing my virginity to Travis. And it was very soon. It was, I don't even want to put it on a time thing like that. Like, oh, it was too quick, or I gave it too much time, or like it happened. I realize now that I need to stop giving it up so quickly, right? And so I didn't even know that that was a problem until now when I'm 25 years old, right? And so during this time, I lose my virginity to Travis, right? And I didn't know him that well. He didn't know me that well. All we knew is that we had a great bond and we had a great vibe. And so during this time, we were still friends. We were friends for a whole year before anything extra happened or where I truly knew who he was. And I genuinely feel like you need to take the time to get to learn somebody, even if they're just your friend, even if you're just slightly interested in them. You need to give it at least 7 months before you do anything, go anywhere with this person, right? Like, I don't want to say go anywhere because, you know, we're all adults and you can be responsible. And I don't know you guys, I don't know every single person, like specifically be like, you need 7 months, you need 3, you need 10 years. Like, I can't say that, right? But for me specifically, I know that I need to give it months before I can just jump into something new with somebody because of what I've experienced and what I'm about to tell you, right? And so during this time, right, during this year of platonic friendship, we were friends with benefits. Now, let me tell you something. Being friends with benefits, I think, is the most stupidest thing ever. Even though he wasn't my first friends with benefits. Pause. What I was meaning is that he was my first, but he wasn't my last. I made the mistake of being somebody else's friends with benefits. That's what I meant. It's the stupidest. I just think it brings so much problems. It's so unnecessary. And it's like, it's just another responsibility. You don't even realize that there's a responsibility there until it comes and you're like, oh my God, like, man, shut up. Like, I don't ever, I can't, I just can't. And at my old 25-year-old age, I just think it's so stupid at this point. Like, it's so, I feel like that's something you do when you're young and dumb. to be quite honest with you. And even though I think people can do it and people can do it successfully, I think people can do it to a certain extent, right? I don't even know if it's even fully successful. I don't know. All of the ones that I've experienced have been failures, so I can't say whether or not. Like, maybe my judgment is skewed. I don't know. But I'm just telling you, I just don't think it really works unless each party is completely 1000% like not attracted into the person romantically. But I still think that there's a level of attraction romantically to engage in a friends with benefits. But I digress. So during this time, me and Travis were friends. We are now sexually active together. I'm learning different things about his body at the same time that I'm learning different things about my body, right? During this time, right, like I said, we're being sexually active, etc., right? I was genuinely, during this time up into the New Year's, I was genuinely his friend. I was genuinely not searching for more. I didn't love him in that way. He was my best friend, and like we would spend time together all the time. And it wasn't all the time, like every single day. It was like every single weekend I was staying. And if I was staying, I was more than likely staying from Friday to Sunday. Sometimes Monday, sometimes Tuesday, whatever like we could get away with, because at the dorms there was like a maximum of how long you could stay with somebody, right? I think it was like 3 days that they could stay. And so during this time, Travis had me in a rotation of women. I've said this before and I will say it again until I'm blue in the face. Don't ever disrespect yourself enough to allow you to be in a rotation of men, or to allow a man to have you in his rotation of women. It's just not okay. And I know for some people they don't really care because they're not really looking for anything more. But the thing is also, why are you okay? Like when you're having sex with that man and he's having sex with multiple people at the same time on a consistent basis, you're having sex with all of those people, whether it be men and women, whether it be just women, etc. It doesn't matter. You're having sex with those people and you're putting yourself at risk for the things that come along with having sex with multiple people. And guess what I learned during that time while I was having sex with just him and he was having sex with multiple people? I was getting stuff. I was getting contractual stuff because he was the carrier and I was being safe. I thought I was being safe. I thought I was being okay. You know, at this time I wasn't on birth control, and so he whenever we did anything, he always wore a condom, and I always made sure that we were not on a cycle of when I was ovulating. Like that's one thing I was 1000% sure. I was like, listen, we ain't doing nothing when I'm ovulating because I'm not taking the chance, right? And so even then, even though I thought I was being careful, the brother was still dirty, and I got mixed up in that nastiness. And I was like, listen, it wasn't nothing serious. It wasn't anything like of course it was traumatic because it was the first time I experienced something, and it was also the first time that I had to get a pap smear. And I was like, it was okay, but I didn't even know about pap smears until I was 19. Like I was so upset with my mother for not even like informing me. I had to find out through my friends what a pap smear was. And I was like, you mean to tell me that they are going to open up my... Anyways, so I went through a lot of moments where I was learning more about what needs to be done with my body and the responsibility that comes with being active. And I did not like it. But guess what? I had to do it because guess what I was doing? I was continuing to having sex. And so I knew... Even though I knew that he was having sex with other people, the women that he was having sex with, not all of them knew that he was having sex with other people. And so a lot of the times me and Travis would get into arguments, you know, like, because he would have sex with this one girl who I wrote down her name, Candace, right? Candace, this bitch, like, Candace, I knew she had to know that he wasn't being forthcoming. She had to know, but she had to know and chose to ignore it, because he not only was he not slick about, actually he probably was slick, because he would constantly delete his messages. He would constantly go through her messages and my messages. Like, oh, I guess I need to talk about that, right? So okay, we would get into a lot of arguments because basically the other women wouldn't know about each other, but I knew about everybody basically. And there was another girl who was in the rotation who I named her Sasha, who basically he was in love with Sasha, and you know, he was trying to get everything out of his system now so he could be with Sasha, right? And so basically we got 3 characters right now. Even though there was like 5 women in his rotation, we got 3 characters, and that's all that matters to the story right now. So we got me, we got Candace, who basically is in love with him, and we got Sasha, who Travis was in love with Sasha at the time, right? And so basically he would keep all of us in a rotation. Whenever Sasha was free, he would, you know, drop all of us and be like, yo, I'm going to Sasha, sorry, I gotta get to her. And then whenever she wasn't free and they were having their little thing, he would come to us. But I was always on the weekend. Candace was always during the week, and I was always, and then Sasha was always sporadically, because she didn't want anything to do with him, but he was also her first love. And so, you know, they were going through whatever it is that they went through the time. And so basically the reason why we were having arguments, because I felt like I realized one of the women needed to know about each other, because that's disrespectful. And of course, you know, he started to lie to me because I was getting annoying with it. Like, whenever we would start to get intimate, I'd be like, did you tell anybody? Or whenever he mentioned their names, I'd be like, oh, but did you tell them? You can't find the right time to tell them, because that's disrespectful. That's rude. Like, you're having unprotected sex with a lot of women and you're not telling them about it. What are you doing? Like, the thing that he would constantly say to me is like, oh, the only reason why you want me to tell her is because you don't have a body like hers, right? Like, because you know that I like to have sex with her more than I like to have sex with you. And I'm like, that's not the case. That's not the problem here. Like, how are you turning it to me and my own insecurities? Like, because I had personal body insecurities, like, that was irregardless of them. And I was like, how are you twisting it to be about jealousy when jealousy isn't even in the picture, when you know you're wrong? That's the number one thing a narcissist will do, is to constantly turn the tables onto you. They will pick some truths and mix it up with a bunch of lies to try to get you to believe what they're saying, because logically it could make sense. And so that's a lot of what Travis would do. He would throw a lot of shots here and there that would really hurt my ego and hurt my feelings. And a lot of times I started to believe what he was saying, because even though I knew that I was right in like being upset with him with what he was doing, the shots that were coming back to me, I was like, damn, maybe he's right. Maybe I am just jealous. There was a point in time where I really thought I was jealous, and I was like, wait a minute, Whitney, like wait a minute. You're not jealous. Like, I really wasn't. There was a point in time where I really wasn't jealous of what they had going on. I really genuinely was like, yo, it's my duty as a friend to tell you what you need to do, because you're really and truly fucking up, right? There was a woman who he was trying to take her virginity, but then he was just like, you know what? I know that I can get it if I really wanted it. So I got all these other women, so I don't really need to do that, right? And all this time, he's basically like, I want to be with Sasha, so let me get this out of my system. And I'm like, okay, but you're going about it in the wrong way. Like, that's not okay. And so there was a point in time where he lied to me about being active with Candace. And so, because there was a point in time where he told me that, oh, him and Candace stopped having sex because, you know, he had to push back because he started to feel like she was catching feelings. And so I, you know, started to have sex with him again, because I stopped having sex with him because I was like, listen, if you're going to continue to have sex with them, I'm not going to have sex with you, because I'm not trying to catch anything. And so he told me that, you know, he stopped having sex with her. You know, there was moments where like they would do it, but it was less now, and they would just hang out because he started to feel like they were catching feelings. And you see, you know what my dumbass did? My dumbass continued, right? My dumbass continued the fuckery. And I was like, well, you know, he's stopping over there and I like it, so why not? And then guess what I did one day? One day this is how it goes. One day he was telling me about how Candace was basically confessing her love to him. And he was showing me the messages in his phone. And then all of a sudden, because we're sitting in a common area, one of his friends calls his name, and he was like, here, read it, right? Like, I didn't go through his phone. Technically, I did go through his phone, but like, he gave it to me to read, right? He was like, this is what you need to read. And so he gets up and goes and talks to his friend. And so I'm scrolling, right? And so I read basically what I believe he thought I was just going to read, right? Because it was a long conversation. When I got to the end, I was like, damn, she's really in love. But then I wanted context. And this is the part where I was like, where I'm thinking like, okay, maybe I did go through his phone because I went beyond the barrier, right? And so after reading everything, because he's still talking to his friend at this point, right? Like, I haven't crossed the boundary yet. Then I scroll up past where he told me to start. And I say, I need more context, because what the hell is going on? And so I continue reading, and Candace is basically telling him everything that her friends are saying about him, right? Because her friends are basically being like, yo, you're a shit dude. One of her friends hit him up, on social media and was like, yo, like, you really ain't shit for treating my friend like this. You're taking her out on dates, but then being like, oh, we're not together. You know she likes you, but you're not stopping, right? Like, you're basically taking advantage of her. And I remember reading that message too, because he showed me that one. And so as I'm scrolling up and then continuing forward down, guess what I find? Candace is detailing why she's so in love with him. She says, the way that he makes me feel is that I'm basically his world. I am the sunshine, whatever, princess, queen, whatever it is. And she says, I love the way that we have sex together, because with each part of us having sex, he makes my body feel like I'm on fire. Last night was like we were making love. The way she got so in detail. She was like, the way he licks my nipples, the way he kisses my body, the way he grabs my head, blah blah blah. Like, this girl was deep in love. And I said, hold up, last night, because just the day before that. And he comes back and he sits down, and I throw the phone at him and I say, so you stopped having sex with Candace? And he realized he couldn't even say nothing. He always had that stupid ass look on his face where he was always caught, because he was always doing some stupid ass shit at the time, right? And so I was like, yo, I don't trust you with my body anymore. We're not doing anything. And because I was so stupid and so ridiculous, guess how long that lasted? That lasted for maybe a month. Like, I remember being proud of myself, because I think it was like the third week where I was proud of myself, because we would hang out and not do anything. So I want to say it lasted for like another week, like maybe a month. And then I started having sex with him again. Like, clearly I wasn't as disciplined as I thought I was. Clearly I wasn't as firm in what I believed, because even though I hated the fact of what he was doing, I obviously didn't care so much to stop it on my end, right? Like, to stop myself being affected. I obviously didn't care about myself enough to stop, right? Because I didn't have to be a part of that factor, but of course I was. And so towards the end of the year, oh yeah, this is going to be a long story time. Towards the end of the year, him and Candace went through this whole thing where, like, she was like, why won't you date me? And he's like, because I don't want to. Like, you know that I'm trying to get with Sasha. I'm just trying to get this out of my system. Basically, why friends with benefits just didn't work. He had like 17,000 friends with benefits. I just had him. And so even though they were having their own problems, me and him ended up getting closer during this time, because, he was a good person and he felt bad for what was going on. But he knows when he does wrong. It's just that he did not care enough to stop it, right? And so I want to make this clear, because I didn't think I'd make this clear in the beginning. Everything that I'm talking about today obviously is who we were at the time, and with different timelines, who we were at that time. I have no idea who this man is today. I haven't talked to this man in 2 years. I think it's been a little bit over. I don't know how long it's been, but I know it's been years. Okay, I haven't talked to this man at all. And so I have no idea who he is. He could have changed. He could have did a complete 180. He could have been a completely different person, or he can be the same person he is. I don't know. I don't care to find out, and I'm not ever going to find out, because I'm never going to talk to him again. I don't want that sort of person in my life to kind of remind me of what once was, right? And so I need to make a disclaimer. I have no idea who he is. I have no idea what he's doing. I don't care. And I'm just talking about what I've experienced, right? I'm not saying that he is still this person to this day. I'm not still the same person. So I would hope and pray that he's not the same person as well. Continuing. Basically we start from, okay, so we met around May, and it went all the way down to December. So not even a year yet, right? Not even a year yet, and I already gave this guy my virginity, like my friendship. I already made some stupid ass decisions for myself, right? And so we get down to the point of where he is going through this thing with Candace, and I'm there for him because, at the end of the day, he felt bad. And that was basically the reason why they stopped doing whatever it is that they needed to do. And so at this point, Candace was starting to kind of be like Sasha, where they would have sex every now and then, but he kind of learned his lesson of why he shouldn't be treating people the way that he was treating them. And guess how long he learned this lesson for? He learned this lesson for about a week, because After, I want to say like a month or two, they started continuing up whatever it is that they were doing. Because guess what? Now we're going to fast forward into when I started to realize that I had deep feelings for Travis. Now this was after New Year's. New Year's, we hung out, and I was so disappointed on New Year's because his timing was horrible, and I really wanted to kiss on New Year's because I really value that new year. I don't know, it's just, I don't know, I guess that's one of my girly things about me. Like, I love the idea of being kissed for the first time on New Year's, and I've only been kissed twice on New Year's, and it's very important to me. At this time, I've never been kissed on New Year's, and he was like, oh, I'm not kissing you on New Year's, blah blah blah, even though I told him like, please do it, right? And so I was very disappointed during this time, and I had to ask myself, yo, like, Whitney, why are you so disappointed? And I learned that it wasn't just because I wasn't able to get those sparks on New Year's. It was because your girl had caught feelings. So fast forward, right, around January, February, etc., I realized that I have caught feelings. And it didn't help that we went on dates. It didn't help that we went out together for New Year's. It didn't help that we were sexually active. Like, nothing helped at all. It didn't help that he was funny. It didn't help that he was a good, he had a great head on his shoulders. He just continued to choose stupid ass decisions. I don't know how to explain it. Like, you know what you need to do, but you choose to not do it. Whatever it was, he was the person at the time. And so it got to the point to where we basically are getting to the point to where we start dating. He tries to go after Sasha, and Sasha basically dubs him. And so I take this opportunity to tell him about how I feel, and he jumps on that opportunity like nobody's business, right? And so in my head, I don't know if he truly had feelings for me in the beginning, like where like in the beginning of us dating, because it could have been that he had lost someone, and so he was trying to fill up that hole with me. But even though he liked me as a person because we were friends, I don't know, I really can't say whether or not he truly had feelings for me at the time that I exposed mine to him. But regardless of that, we ended up dating. We ended up saying I love you, and this was a matter of 3 months, right? So in the time span that we dated for 3 months, it was hell. It was rocky as fuck. We argued all the time. He would say, I wrote down the things that he would say to me, because listen, you got to be careful what you say to people, because you don't know what's going to stick. You got to be careful what you say to people, because you don't know what you're triggering, right? I, at this time, was very codependent. And not even that, like, why are you going to be an asshole? Why are you going to say something to somebody that you know is going to completely hurt them, hurt their feelings, is going to break someone down? Because it's not like he came at me correct. He came at me so disrespectfully, and I just took it. And because I just took it, he felt like it was okay to constantly come at me with these stupid ass things. And I took it. I thought he was right. I was like, okay, Whitney, you need to be a better person, because guess what? You're failing, and this is why you're failing, right? Like, when I first told him that I wrote it down. So as I'm looking down, that's basically why. And so when I first told him about my feelings, right, he would tell me things like, yo, you're not the only one trying to be the only one, right? And then as we were in the relationship, I don't want to skip over that. You're not the only one trying to be the only one. Yo, fuck you for that. Like you think of putting myself back in the situation. It's like, Whitney, why did you stay? Why were you okay with being in this particular predicament? Not only was I codependent, I got a video on that. Not only did I not value myself as a person, I should make a video on that. I didn't have any confidence in myself. I genuinely thought that he was the best that I was ever going to get, because not only was he financially efficient, not only was he getting a job, not only was he a good person at the time, right? Like, I don't want to say that he was a bad person in general, because I don't think so. I just think that he had his demons. Let's put it like that. He had his demons. And I might be being a little bit too nice, but he was definitely a narcissist. He was definitely an asshole. He was definitely somebody who was controlling, but in his own way. And he was also a very good person on the other side. So he had his demons, and he also had his good perks, right? The good sides, everything, the reason why I would stay, and I know why I stayed, is because I wanted to get back to the time to when we were friends and everything was just amazing. Because he was such a great friend. We were such great friends. We were so loyal to each other, which is why I don't know why in 3 months span he cheated. And he cheated with Candace, the girl that he told me that, he stopped having sex with, the girl that was in love with him, etc., etc. When he had started dating me, she went bananas, where she was like, it's basically a slap in the face that, you know, you're not trying to date me, etc. And so in my mind at the time, I was like, what have you been telling her to make her think that she ever had a chance? And he would be like, oh, it's because we went on dates, and then, you know, I would console her when she's crying and stuff like that, right? Like, I was a good friend to her. And I was like, clearly you were more than a good friend, because she shouldn't have had the idea, if you handled your business when you did back in December, she shouldn't have had the idea that, you know, you guys were ever going to be together, unless you told her that, you know. And he probably did, because he used to say things like that to me all the time, like, yo, Whitney, you would be a great girlfriend, you know, like, I would probably date you. Things like that. When we were just friends, he would say that to me, so he was probably saying that to her as well. And so in this 3-month time span when we're dating, not only we're arguing all the time, there were moments where things were good. So that's why it was so toxic, because it's like you had this great thing here and you had this great bond that was so fantastic for a whole year, and then all of a sudden you take like expectations and you put it in there, and it just makes problems, right? When I first started dating him, I had different expectations than what I had as a friend, and I think that he thought that everything was going to be the same. No, I had things like, listen, I don't want you dancing on women on the club. Why are you disrespecting me out the house? Like, you don't need to be dancing on other women. And he had a problem with that. Another thing was, like, he would go to Sasha's house, and I would be like, listen, she's in love with you, bro. Like, I don't want you there all night. I don't want you sleeping over. What the fuck is you doing? He's like, yo, I'm not doing anything, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just try to go to her house just once a week because I'm her person. Like, he would say things like that. And because they too were friends, right? And so I'm like, I don't care who you are to her. Like, there's boundaries that needs to be set now, because you're my man. And even though he tried setting those boundaries, he didn't fully enforce them, because I don't think he truly wanted to, right? He didn't like feeling controlled. And so because of that, he cared more about his freedom than he did about being in a relationship with me. Which, there's nothing wrong with your own freedom. It's just like, don't be in a relationship when you want your own freedom. And so when he cheated on me, it was the first time that I experienced the heartbreak, and that was really hard for me. I couldn't sleep at all. It was really hard on my mental health, because I've never experienced that type of betrayal ever before. He was my first love. He was the first person that I've opened myself up to, and so I never expected him to betray me in that sort of way, because I was so loyal. I still am so loyal, and I would never do that to somebody. And so at the time I was like, I would never do that to you, so why would you do that to me? Young Whitney, I know. And so some things that he would tell me was like, I wouldn't have cheated on you if you had just acted right. And my sister to this day could not stand him, because she was like, during this time, he acted like you were the problem. And in hindsight, our relationship, you know, in that 3 months wasn't peaceful. But, you know, we both had a hand in the chaos. And I say that this word chaos because he said something to me like, you aren't my peace, you're my chaos, and that's why the grass always looks greener on the other side. And I remember hearing that and thinking like, you know, it really hurt me, because I really thought that I was, you know, I was this problem, I was this chaos, I was this tornado that just came into people's lives and just ruined things. I really thought that, you know, I was so annoying and I was always the problem, which is something that I still struggle with today, where I always constantly, and like this was something that I had before him too, but I feel like it was amplified after that because of a lot of things that he would say to me. And so a lot of times, even to today, I'm very aware of how I act around people, because not only do I want to make them uncomfortable, I don't want to be a nuisance to them, I don't want to ruin anybody's experience, like I don't want to ruin anybody else's experience. And so I'm very like mindful of how I act, even when I'm drunk, right? Like that goes out the window, but afterwards, like say I act, there's no thought, I just act, and then afterwards I'm like, oh shit, like oh my gosh, should I have done that? And I think about it for hours on end. Another thing that he used to say to me is you can't see the sun when you're constantly surrounded by gray clouds, something like that. What did he say? You can't see the sun when there are so many gray clouds. He would also say like, oh, you're just speaking like this because it's your insecurities. Why are you going to feed into your own insecurities? You need to fix your insecurities before you come to me with any problems, right? Because he would constantly think, or he would constantly say it's me, even if I had something valid, right? Like a lot of the times when I got out of that relationship and I would tell the rest of my friends or the person that I was with after him a couple things that I felt like in the relationship, they would be like, what the fuck? He is a complete narcissist and he didn't want to take accountability for his actions because everything that you were saying is completely 1000% valid. Like he what, right? And it was kind of like, once I got out of that relationship, it was kind of like a brain, I keep on calling it a brain blast, but like my shit was blown for real, because I was like, wow, I really was brainwashed into thinking in the ways that he thought. Like I really thought that, oh, he knows everything, and so I really valued what he was saying. A lot of times he would also tell me, you know, it's not my fault. He would say it like this: it's not my fault you see gray in the rest of the world and I see blue, as if the whole world sees everything that you see and I'm just wrong and taking the shit out my ass, right? And a couple things also happened as we continue forward. There was a 6-month period where I basically cut him off. Like he cheated on me and I was like, yo, don't talk to me. Like I don't want anything to do with you, don't talk to me. And so we didn't. And during this time he would send me a bunch of emails basically telling me about his life. And it got to the point to where I was like, yo, stop talking to me. And I sent him that and he was like, why? Like he was really like blowing my shit up. And he was like, yo, let's just talk about it. And I like an idiot, I really wish I didn't, but like an idiot, I went to him and I talked about it, and guess what happened? We had sex, and then we started talking about getting back together. But guess what I had to do during this period of us talking and getting back together? I had to be comfortable with the fact that he was still friends with Candace. And I shouldn't say I had to be comfortable with the fact, because that's basically what I told myself at the time. I was telling myself, yo, you have to get comfortable with this, because one, you want to be with him, like just get over it. And two, another thing that he said to me was, adults, what did he say? This is the most gaslighting shit ever. He would say, adults are comfortable with exes being in the picture because they're not threatened by the ex, or their insecurities are handled because they're adults, something like that, right? Like he would be like, oh, adults don't let something like their own insecurities cloud their judgment, right? And so think about it with me here, right? Like in hindsight, sure, right? Like sure, that's somewhat fair to say, right? Like once you mature in your emotions, you allow things to disrupt your emotions. You allow things, you don't allow things to affect you as much as you mature mentally and emotionally, right? I guess that's the same thing. That's fair. But in the context in which we were talking about, he definitely used that to his own advantage. And so I'm sitting here thinking like, yo, okay, if I'm emotionally mature, if I'm an adult, like I need to be comfortable with this bitch being in the picture. And I was never comfortable with it. I had to slowly get comfortable. I was fake about it. Like it literally, like to this day, I will never, ever, ever take a cheater back, right? I would never take a cheater back. Not only will I never take a cheater back, I will never, ever, ever be in a situation where if I do take a cheater back, I will never be okay with him being friends with the ex. Like I just can't take a cheater back, because I know who I am if I do. I'm not stable. I'm not okay. I'm not like, I'm going to be thinking about that person all the time, especially when you go out. I'm going to be thinking that you're lying to me, because he lied to me a lot. I'm going to be thinking that I'm going to drive myself crazy, and I don't deserve that. I deserve a lot more, and I deserve to treat myself. One, I deserve to treat myself like the queen that I am. And two, the man that I'm going to be with, I deserve that treatment as well. I deserve to be treated like a queen just as much as he deserves to be treated like a king. But guess what? He also needs to act like one. Guess what? I also need to act like one. And guess what? I was not acting like one in that moment. I was not acting like what I deserve to be treated like, right? Because I was accepting stupid ass behavior. I was allowing him to treat me however, because I loved him, because I was a fucking idiot, bitch. And and like we make these stupid ass decisions, and as I'm getting like, I'm not getting emotional, but I guess I'm getting passionate, because it's so important to know your value, because if you know your value, you will not allow people to treat you anything less than. And I did not know my value at the moment. It took a while to get to where I am today, and I'm still not done. I'm still not where I want to be. There's so much more that I want to accomplish in my life. Like, I'm only 25, right? But that's no excuse to just stop and take my time. I'm going to get to where I want to be. Why? Because I am not going to accept anything less. Now, you think that's where the story ends, but that's not it, okay? Where did I leave off? I know who I am if I take a cheater back, and that's not the type of relationship that I want, right? So let's fast forward. Guess what, right?
Candace
ends up dating somebody else, and the person that she's with isn't comfortable with Travis, and so
Candace
cuts off Travis, which is hilarious to me, because that's what I feel like he should have done. But regardless of that, like, we can have that conversation of having exes in the picture if you want to. I think for some people it can work, but I also think it depends on the story that you have. What is the story of you guys together? And then we can make our assessment or judgment, whatever. But there's also a case of, like, if you come into the picture and that person is there and they're solid, like they're just friends, nothing has ever happened, like, there's also an element of, do I even have the right to say anything about that, because I'm coming into a new environment? So that's a topic that we can talk about some different time. Like, I can see both sides. But anyways, I get back with Travis. I get back with him after being cheated on, and we date for 2 years after that. Within these 2 years, we go through, it's a great relationship, but it was also very toxic. Like, we had a lot of fun. We ended up going on a trip. We did what people who've been together for 2 years do. And so, of course, during this time, we're talking about marriage. And he constantly told me that he cannot see himself marrying me. And that just fucking hurt my feelings. But that should have been a red flag. That is a red flag in and of itself, because how are you dating me for this long and you can't see a future? Men, I don't know how to say this, but in my experience, men know exactly what they want, okay? And they're going to go for exactly what they want. He did not want me. And even though I knew that, I didn't want to believe it. And so even though he told me constantly, like, he used to tell me whenever I bring up the topic, because I was so fixated on our future together, he would be like, it's really hard for me to see a future with you. It's really hard for me to see myself marrying you. I could see us as friends. And even that in and of itself, being like that, was really messed up to me, because I was like, yo, like, what are we doing here? And towards the end of our very toxic relationship, Travis did not have the balls to break up with me. He did everything in his power to get me to break up with him, but just break up with me, right? And I find that to be very, very cowardly, because it's like, if you care about this person, you should make it your duty to do what needs to be done, right? Especially, like, if it was me, if I needed to break up with this person because I felt like I could flourish better without them, I would do everything in my power to try to make it hurt less, because I can't take, like, it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. If they love me as much as they say they do, and if I love them as much as I said I did, and I just lost, like, the desire to be with them, it is my duty to have the conversation with them, and to do it as truthfully, transparency. I should say that different. I should do it as truthfully as possible, as transparent as possible. And I can't be harsh in that moment, because I know what's going to happen. It's going to hurt. And so I don't want to hurt you any more than what I have to. So what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to tell everybody else that I don't want to be with them, right? What I'm not going to do is, I'm not going to constantly tell you that I don't want to hang out. Like, what did he say to me? He would tell me that I didn't bring things to the table. He went through a period where he was really, like, tearing me down. Like, oh, you don't bring anything to the table. And I was like, yes, I do. He was like, you don't bring money. You don't bring stability. You are my chaos. You're not my peace. Like, he really wrote on that shit for a while. And I was like, yo, like, I don't care what you say. Whatever you say, I really don't care, because continuing forward, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I know I'm a valuable person, and I know I bring a lot of things to the table. I may not be making as much money as you're making right now, but guess what? There's more than that. I am stable. I am loyal. I am your emotional support, right? And the thing is that he would be like, oh, those are things that you have to have when you come to my door, right? Some of the things that I bring to you is financial stability. And he I hate myself for this because I really wanted to give it back, but I just wasn't in the position at the time to do so. And I wasn't financially literate at the time to do so either. So during this time that we're kind of going through a downfall, right? I get into this master's program where I'm so excited, I'm so happy to get in, and I say, yo, I'm going to do the damn thing, because in undergrad I didn't get the greatest GPA at all. I really learned a lot about myself in undergrad. And so getting into this master's program, I ended up getting a job working at my university, and I had to be a master's student. And so sitting here, I'm looking at this bill that needs to be paid before school starts, and I lack $1,500 or $2,000. I lack $2,000, right? And I had $500. And so at this time, Travis also had like a large lump sum of money coming in because he just won a scholarship. And so he says, listen, I can't sit here and watch you struggle. I am going to pay the remainder of your balance so that way you can start school. And I say, and I'm, of course, because I know who this person is, of course, I'm like hesitant, because I'm like, listen, I know how you are with money. I know how you are when it comes to like people paying you back with money. Like he doesn't expect people to pay him back, because he's just like, you don't give away money unless you're expecting to like lose it completely. And so he was like, this isn't a loan. I'm not going to hold this over your head. And I was like, okay, you can't use it in arguments. You can't sit here and be like, oh, you wouldn't have learned this if it wasn't for me. Because he was riding on that train for a while, where he was like, oh, you wouldn't have learned about credit if it wasn't for me. You would have no work ethic if it wasn't for me. I was like, all right, son, you met me when I had 3 jobs. Relax, okay? Like, relax. Like he really thought he molded me into this amazing person that was now illiterate in all things adulting. And I'm like, listen, like, even though I started at a different place than you, doesn't mean I didn't have my own foundations. Like, if I learned anything about work ethic, I learned it from my mother. Like, fuck is you talking about? Like, I can go on that, like, on a tangent, but that would just me ranting instead of actually like talking about what I'm talking about. But anyways, so I was really drilling him because I did not want to take his money. I had a feeling that he would hold it over my head, and guess what he did? He held it over my head. So I'm talking to him at this time. I'm talking to him about this money. He gives me the $1,500, and there was money left over, and so we completely blow that money in like a day and a half, because when you have money coming in and you have money left over, you save it, right? And he saved some of it, and then whatever was left over of that, he was like, yo, let's just go crazy. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings, we went skating, we did stupid shit that, like, we spent like $100 at Buffalo Wild Wings. Our bill was fucking like $40, and we were like, yo, let's just tip them like the extra 50. Why not? Because I was a server at the time, and I was like, yo, let's do it. And I would do that to today, right? Like, I would tip somebody more than was worth, but we were kind of acting fools, right? But we were having fun. And so as the days keep on going and he's not saying anything about the money, I start to feel comfortable with taking the money for him and paying for school. So I'm very grateful at the fact that he, offered to pay for the remainder of my balance, because if it wasn't for him paying for that, I'm not sure that I would have been able to start, because it was hard for me to get co-signers. The banks weren't putting out, they weren't giving me a loan unless I was having a co-signer, because I was young at the time, right? I think I was like 21, 22. No, I just turned 22. I don't know the time frame, whatever. And so I'm very grateful for him for doing that. And then as we continue forward, he starts saying things like, you wouldn't have gotten your job if it wasn't for me. And I was like, hold up. Wait, like, I really went off on him, because I was like, yo, I'm not about to entertain your ego. First of all, I knew about credit before you, okay? I didn't know about a Roth IRA before you, so thank you for informing me. But guess what? This job that I interviewed for, that me, myself, and I interviewed for, I got that job all on my own, because they liked who I was. You weren't in the room with me. The thing is that he was picking on the fact that he thought that he was the reason that I got the job is because he told me to send a follow-up email after the interview, and I did. And that's one of the reasons that they really liked about me, because they thought that I was very professional in the interview, and they really liked that I sent a follow-up email. And so he took that and he ran with it. He was like, if it wasn't for me paying for your school, you would not have gotten that job. If it wasn't for me telling you about sending up a follow-up email, who's to say that you would have gotten that job in the first place? Also, right, there was a lot of times where we would talk about, in our future, I had loans. And so he was like, if I help you pay for these loans, you have to pay me back a percentage. I was like, yo, you are not the person I want to be with, because what the fuck are you talking about? Right? And like a lot of the times when he would help me out with things, he would constantly be like, oh, you wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for me. It was an era of narcissism, bitch, because I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe if it wasn't for him. Like it was constant. And so we got to the point to where basically I was like, yo, what are we okay? What are we doing? Like, what's going on? And he was just silent, and I was like, all right, okay, all right, so what are we gonna do? And so at this end of the time, right, we're back 2 years later, right, we're back at December, New Year's, and he's like, let's just write it out for this last month and start the new year fresh, right? So I agreed to basically writing it out and starting the new year fresh, right? But during this time, it was also very heavy on my heart. Like, it was very, very, very emotionally traumatic, because during this time, he was basically telling everybody else how he felt but me. And I felt so disrespected, because I was like, if anybody needs to know what's going on in this relationship, it needs to be us. We need to be transparent. We need to be honest with each other on what the fuck's going on. And so there was another point in our relationship where I was just basically like crying and sobbing hysterically, because I was like, listen, you don't have to fake anymore. Like, fine, just don't be my boyfriend, leave me alone, let's go on this trip that you're planning for us to go on this trip for New Year's, and just call it a day. And so that's basically what we did. We went on a trip, we had a great New Year's, he kissed me on New Year's, even though like I didn't have that much fun on New Year's, because like when he got drunk, he got like messy, and I didn't like it at all. It wasn't as much fun as I would have liked. And so in my head, I was just kind of like, yo, I cannot be in this sort of predicament ever again in my life. But again, the story doesn't start there, because I really and truly thought that I didn't want to admit that it was over. And even though I knew, like, there was a point in time also where I knew that we weren't going to be together, and I still was kind of going after it, because I was like, yo, I can't get any better. Like, you need to stay with me. I was very codependent. I was very reliant on the fact that I didn't want to break the bond that we had. But the bond was broken a long time ago. You can call it attachment issues, you can call it codependency, but I'm gonna tell you what it is. I didn't want to let go, which is basically that. But also, I didn't want to start new. I was afraid of starting new. And that's why I was also toxic in this relationship, because I didn't want to go off into something new, because I was afraid I was just going to find the same type of person over and over again. And I've said this before, where I was like, yo, I might as well stay, because like, at least he has money, right? Like, at least he has a good head on his shoulders. At least he has a job. And that's not okay on his end either. That he doesn't deserve to be with somebody who says, listen, I might as well stay with this person, because not only will I not find another bond like this anywhere, but all the guys are the same, so I might as well stay with somebody who is going somewhere. That's fucked up, and that's not fair. And so basically, to kind of backtrack, the day that I knew that we weren't okay for each other is this. And it's I don't know if I want. Okay, well, I've already started. So this is what happened. So he was basically on a work trip, and he was coming home, and I waited for him to come home. Basically, I was at our university, and I was sitting around waiting for him to come home. and I was going to, I think I picked him up from the airport, I don't remember, or I was waiting for him to come back from the airport. And so we're sitting in the car, we're hanging out, we're having the greatest time ever. It's as if nothing happens. Now this is at our 2-year mark. We didn't make it to 2 years. We made it a little bit before, but this is in the period of the downfall. And so during this time, like, no matter what was going on with us, in the middle here, it was fantastic. We were having a great time. It was like old times. And so we were sitting in the car butt ass naked, right? Because we had just finished doing whatever it is that, you know, people in a relationship do sometimes. And we're sitting there, we're rubbing each other's back or whatever. And in this moment, I was thinking, you know, if this was the relationship that I needed or that I truly desired, I wouldn't have been thinking what I'm thinking right now. I wouldn't have been feeling like, you know, why can't it always be like this? Why can't I feel so passionately in love with this person, right? And even though it was an amazing moment, we got out, we said our goodbyes. As I'm driving home, I start speaking to Christ and I start talking to God, and I'm like, he's not the man for me, is he? And I start sobbing. Like, it's crazy because, like, this night, it was a fantastic night ever, right? The night, like, this is what I've always wanted. I'm wanting something here, and once I finally get it, like, once I finally get an element of peace, it's not what I thought it was. Why? Because you're not even fully in love with him. He's not fully in love with you. Even though you guys really, really want this, you both know that it's not going to happen. Now, I don't know what he felt afterwards. He probably felt really nice, like really cool and everything. But me, in my heart of hearts, deep down inside, I was like, I can't have this. This isn't the relationship for me. But guess what I did after that? I threw it away and I was like, but I'm going to get it though. Like, I'm not going to quit. Like, I'm going to keep trying over and over. And after that is basically what happened with the whole, oh, you wouldn't get anywhere if it wasn't for me, right? Like, this is what happened with the whole, I had to break up with him in order for us to stop being together, right? Like, and this is, and like, this basically, think of that time as like September, October, and then we broke up in December. So that is my story of being in a very, very toxic relationship, being in a relationship where I did not take accountability for my actions at all. And at my old age now, right, like, I'm taking accountability for my part in the toxicity, even though I know I'm not taking responsibility for what he did, but what I am taking responsibility for is allowing him to do so, not having value in myself, not taking accountability for my own actions, and for accepting the bare minimum. It's not fair to you to accept the bare minimum. It's not fair to you to accept somebody who's not going to treat you with the utmost respect. Every last one of you deserves the utmost respect, right? Every last one of us deserves to be in a fulfilling and loving relationship. And personally, I believe that if I was to leave sooner, I think I would have been in a relationship, or I would have found someone who would have treated me right. I would have had there probably would have been a different problem. But at the end of the day, I think that if I was to leave sooner, I wouldn't have had a lot of the problems that I had in the future. But I'm not regretting anything because it taught me a lot, right? If anything, it taught me my value, and I will never ever ever let somebody else impose their ego onto me to try to tell me that my success is because of them, right? There's people in my life, just like happiness, there's people in my life who attribute to my happiness, who attribute to my success, but at the end of the day, this is my success. My best friends, if they come to me for advice, one of my friends came to me to edit her cover letter and her resume, because it's what I do, right? But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you got the job because I edited your resume and your cover letter. The fuck? You got the job because you put in the work to do so. You put in the work to get that job, right? Why would I ever do that to somebody? And I remember telling my friend Chris that. He was like, I'm a tutor, right? Like, I'm a teacher. He's not a professor, but he's like, I guide people in the field that I'm in. Why would I turn around and say, oh, you got a good grade on that test because of me? Why would I do that? Like, I should have never put my put my plate, like I should have never been in that position in the first place, right? Like I should have never helped them out in the first place if I'm only trying to get instant gratification for myself. If I'm only trying to feel better about myself, then I'm not doing it right, right? Like then I'm not truly trying to help somebody. Whew. Girl, I've been talking, man. Like I've learned a lot. I've gained so many like attributes, so many stories, bitch, like that. I tell these stories basically to help everyone and anyone, even if it is just one person, and so that way I can be able to tell my kids, you know, what they should and should not look for in a man, in a woman, and what they should be for themselves. The model, I want to be the model character that my kids can look up to, right? Basically, the reason why I make these videos and why I talk about the things that I've gone through, why I have a podcast, is to basically guide you guys and to tell you like, hey, this is what I've done in my life. Now, you can continue to go down the road that you're going down if you're, you know, going down the same road that I went down. And this may or may not happen to you. But, you know, like, let's take a peek on into the future of what happened to me when I was doing the same things that you were doing back in your day, right? Or that you're doing in the moment that I did back in my day. And so basically overall, it's just to be able to share my story, to tell you guys like, hey, like something like this might happen, to share my mistakes so that way you too could avoid the same mistakes that I made, right? I learned a lot of lessons and I'm here to share all of those lessons with everybody. And I'm also, another reason, this may be going on a tangent, but I think it's important, it's imperative to learn yourself before you jump into something serious, before you start making serious ass decisions. I need to learn myself first. I need to be secure in who I am, so that way I personally want to be the model character, the model person for my kids to look up to, right? And I think it's imperative for you to know yourself before you have kids, because then once your kids get older, right, and your kids are learning themselves, they're learning things about you that they didn't really witness when they were younger, because you know, we forget that parents are humans as well. So I don't want to be, I'm not saying that I want to be perfect, but I don't want my kids to be messed up because I wasn't whole. And so I'm on my journey, on my spiritual and health, emotional journey. I'm trying to get whole so that way when I find somebody, we can be two peas in a motherfucking pod, bitch. So we can be whole together. And so that way we're not messing up our children, because that's the one thing that's my biggest fear, is to mess up the oncoming generation. Like I don't want to be a part of their downfall, if there is a downfall, you know, right? Like I want to uplift everybody. So I hope I was able to kind of, you know, I guess show you guys who I am by this story, but also show you that, you know, it's time to take accountability. And I have taken accountability of what I've done, and I am taking the steps to be a better person, right? And I shared this story to basically let you know, like, hey, like your bitch has been through some shit, man. Like, and we can like all of the other story times that you see in that story time playlist basically started here. And this is basically the beginning, the foundation. I'm sharing with you guys what I have been through. And so hopefully, like, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but basically we can talk about this as entertainment, and we can also be like, yo, like I'm never going to put myself in that situation again, right? Hopefully I helped you guys out in any way possible. If you have any questions, leave it down in the comments below. If you have anything to say, leave it down in the comments below. If you have any disagreements on what I said, leave it down in the comments below. Also, I do have a segment here on my channel called A Writer's Scope, where you send to my email whatever advice you need, whatever problems you're going through, and I will share a video basically giving you advice. Everyone is automatically anonymous. I just think it's imperative that when you're stuck in a situation, you have a third party's perspective. Sometimes people don't have that person that they can go to basically give them advice on their situation. I've recently discovered my purpose, and my purpose is to, hey, help everyone and anyone, even if it is just one person. And even though, well, I'm not even going to get into that right now, because that's a completely different subject, but I love to help people. So if you are going through anything, I love to help people solve their problems. So if you're going through anything and you would like my advice on whatever problem that you're going through, shoot it to my email and I will give you the best advice possible. Thank you guys for joining me today. Also follow me on all my social medias, because, you know, I love to stay more engaged with you guys. So again, thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.